So, good morning from Washington State, and thank you everybody for joining me here today. And I'm really looking forward to this experience because we're going to be learning some really cool stuff from Graham Old. Graham is one of my friends who we met quite a while ago on the original hypnothoughts.com and had some interesting interactions there, and then became friends online. And Graham is a solution-focused practitioner, hypnosis practitioner in the UK. And he has quite an interesting background, including several years as a Baptist minister, and then also counseling troubled families and people who needed him in that way. And he now has been in private practice for a long time. He's also a popular speaker, and he's an author of several wonderful books, which include, of course, hypnosis material, among other topics. And so, Graham, I'm so pleased to have you here today, and we're all really excited about this topic of therapeutic inductions. And would like to hear more about it and how you got on this particular niche. And so I'm just going to hand it over to you. And why don't you explain a little bit about history to us?
Okay, I think I got into hypnosis through a number of routes kind of coming together at the same time. So I had been working using solution-focused brief therapy with children in need and troubled families. And obviously that led back to Erickson, who was one of the inspirations for that model. So originally I was reading about Erickson from a solution-focused brief therapy angle, not so much the hypnosis. But previously, I'd also, in my previous role as a Baptist pastor, I had been for counseling and just through a GP, and he used some relaxation exercises. And that got me thinking as well about how simple thoughts can change your mind and change your life. And it kind of all coalesced at one point when I was working with a family who simply by imagining things being different made dramatic changes in their lives, which is kind of a common thing you hope for in solution-focused therapy. But afterwards, when we were discussing it and I was getting feedback from them, they said the thing that made it different for them was that I didn't start by saying, so what's the issue? What's the problem? Why have you come to see me? We started by talking about where they wanted to get to. And that, for some people, that's quite a dramatic change. For others, that just feels like how the session begins. But for them, it was really powerful because they've been working with social workers and family support workers and police and domestic violence workers. And all of these people were honing in on the problem. And every single time they met them weekly, they'd say, so how's the problem going? Just reinforcing and almost giving this family the identity of their problem. That's all they were to these people, the problem. And every week the problem got bigger and bigger and bigger because it's all anyone would talk about. So for them to come and sit in my clinic and for me to say, so what do you hope to get out of this? If this has been a successful session, what will things be like for you? You could physically see a change in them. Because I guess they had never even considered that. They hadn't considered life without a problem, because that's all they were to people, was the problem. And so that sent me back to Erickson. There's something about the power of words there. And I went back to Erickson and was reading about his ideas of natural everyday trance, just his use of language. And I thought, right, I need to get more into hypnosis. So I delved into it. And the induction thing came about. I don't know if you remember the early days of like street hypnosis. My fascination with inductions came about because after I'd qualified as a hypnotherapist, I discovered that you had these two camps, and one where people saying the induction is useless, you don't need it, it doesn't do anything. And the other camp was saying that, you know, it's all about the induction. You have to get the induction perfect. You have to use exactly the right words. And I didn't know which side I came down on at that point. I just knew there was something about inductions that was significant. If it can divide the hypnosis community so much, we could at least, look into it and say, what is an induction? What does it actually do? Because people were using them and arguing for how to use it in a particular way, but not many people were kind of unpacking an induction and saying, what's it actually for? So that then became an obsession of mine and has been ever since.
I love that that's where you're going in this conversation right now, because even the topic of your sharing here is therapeutic inductions. And so one of my first questions for you is, how do you define that? Is it based on the goal that you have for that induction?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, when I start working with clients, because of a solution-focused background, I'm asking them what it is they want to get out of the session, or what they want. And people will almost always go back to what they don't want. So I don't want to be afraid of spiders. I don't want to panic. I don't want to have fear of public speaking. And people will often need kind of prodding. Okay, so if you don't want that, what do you want? And people are so used to being stuck in that kind of problem trance that for some people it can take quite a bit of work to get to the goal. What do you actually want? And then when we're there, for me, the induction is to serve that purpose. So the induction for me isn't to get someone into hypnosis. The induction is to access resources and access reasons for change. So I tend to have 3 questions, and I guess this is what makes an induction therapeutic in my mind. The 3 questions are, what resources does the client have that they can access to achieve this goal? The next question will be, what frame of mind does the client need to be in to utilize those resources? And then the third question is, what kind of experience is needed to bring about that frame of mind to access those resources? So the induction for me is educational. It's taking them on that journey. The induction isn't just to get them under and do the work. The induction is the beginning of the work. And I think looking back, that was a big thing for me as well. When I first got into hypnosis, so many people were asking, but what do you do once they're under? And, there's been all this focus on inductions and people are going, okay, they're under now what? But because I'd had that experience of relaxation in counseling, that was quite powerful. For me, I was like, well, if we're spending 40 minutes getting someone under, in that terminology, why can't we use that 40 minutes to also be doing something at the same time? Why can that going under, if you like, not be an educational, resourceful experience such that there's nothing you do once they're under, because getting to that point is a therapeutic journey?
Well, I really appreciate the first of your 3 questions, identifying what strengths and resources a person has. And then I suspect that you're accessing and activating those strengths and resources during your therapeutic inductions. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because often people, as you know, are completely unaware they even have these resources. And it may be a strength they have. It may be a skill that has kind of been buried deep down. And in one sense, the induction is a bit of a ritual to give them an excuse to access those resources, because when they're, again, stuck in that problem trance, their mind can't make that switch to getting that resource, because they're kind of so caged in by what they perceive to be their current reality. So the induction is almost like a ritual, an excuse for them to think differently and act differently and access parts of them that they may have forgotten about or have just gone dormant.
How do you create expectation that what you're going to do is going to give them that experience?
For me, I've changed a bit on this over the years. I think, a good pre-talk is important, using whatever people call them, set pieces or suggestibility routines, that kind of thing. They can build up expectation. And I do most of my inductions, I think, maybe all of them, use phenomena. And I'd like to use phenomena for almost from the moment the person enters the room. So you're creating this atmosphere of something's different here, something could happen here. But for me, the primary way I think I build expectation is either through the induction itself, or I try to project all the expectation that I have. Because I'm focusing on the future goal for a start, I'm fortunate to not be where the client currently is, because I'm not stuck in their problem. So I'm already focused over here. And I do my best to have such high expectation myself that it's almost contagious. So there's little things, there's set pieces and response routines and, magnetic hands and all these sort of simple things we do. But the biggest thing is, I think, is my belief in the client's capacity to change that can be so almost shocking to them sometimes that it almost kind of wakes them up a bit.
Oh, well, I really get that. And it's an energetic principle that's going on. And this isn't just true for people working in hypnosis, but research has shown that when doctors believe and have expectation that the treatment that they're giving a patient, those patients have better results. The treatment works better. So we know that this is true, and this is one of the magical parts of a therapeutic relationship. So I really appreciate you saying that. When in the context of these therapeutic inductions, are they largely hypnotist directed, or are some of those, can those be self-directed by a client? How do you orchestrate that? Does it just depend on what you're doing?
Yeah, it depends very much on those three questions that I said a moment ago. So it's the goal and the state of mind they have to be in to access their resources. I think if the more the client feels resourceless, the more I would direct things, because they feel kind of helpless. The more they are kind of primed and eager and ready to go, the more I might have them take the lead. So it depends very much on where they're at and how we want to get to where we want to go. But a lot of the inductions, like someone might demonstrate later today, can be very open-ended. So I've got a couple of inductions I use that, if you looked at my website and a transcript of the induction, it gives quite a false impression, because it suggests you do this, 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 and this. But in reality, where the induction goes depends on the client and how they're responding and their experiences. So I might talk about early learning experiences they've had, and rather than just project onto them, like, so you learned this, didn't you? And you learned this, and then you did this. We'll have them lead, and they'll take the kind of, they'll choose what direction they go off into. And that, in a sense, reaching that point in itself is part of the therapeutic goal, because the client, to do that, the client is beginning to accept responsibility. They're beginning to believe in themselves. They're beginning to, I guess, they're beginning to believe in the possibilities. And I think that's quite powerful. I use the idea of possibility quite often, because if someone's been stuck in their problem trance for 6 months or a year or 10 years, to even consider that things could be different is really, really powerful. So yeah, so I like the client to be leading things, and often getting there is part of the goal itself.
I agree. And I think, the goal is to empower them so that they can take command of their lives in so many ways, even beyond what particular issue they're seeking help with. And the website that you referred to is your howtodoinductions.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I typed it in our chat room, but I wanted to voice that too. So, and I think, one of the values of using an induction in this way is that, of course, the person is not just having the experience, but they're learning new things. And that learning doesn't necessarily even have to be conscious. And I often say that to people, that you don't have to worry about consciously paying attention to this, because your subconscious mind is learning now at a very deep level. and it will be able to use this learning, this experience for your benefit. And that can take a lot of pressure off of clients, I notice, because so many of them, especially ones that are overthinkers, come in with almost an expectation that they're going to fail at hypnosis. And I want to disavow them of that very early on. One of the ways that I do that is, well, hypnotists go there first, right? So after we've been doing this for a few years, it becomes so automatic that we're not even aware that we're in that trance. And it's wonderful. And it's one of the things that I laugh about later at the end of a session when, we're ratifying what's happened to them by pointing out the time distortion. That's something that I usually do with a client. And then I get to say, wow, what a great job I have, because that hour seemed like 10 minutes and the time flies by. So would you like to give us a demonstration of one of these inductions? I'm sure everybody would love to experience it.
Yeah. Should I do it with one person, or how do you want to do this?
Sure. Do we have a volunteer who would like to participate? Let me look here. Anybody raising a hand or speaking up? Oh, I guess not. Not yet. They're a little shy. That's okay.
I would.
I can do it.
Okay. Who's that?
Cherise.
Yeah,
Peg also.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Peg? Great. All right. So maybe what I'll do, I've got Peg up here in the top. Can you see her?
No.
In the top gallery. Okay. If you like, I could pin her so that you could watch her. Would that be good for you, Graham?
Yeah, that'd be helpful, I think.
Okay. Find her. There we go. And thank you for volunteering. Maybe this is... There she is. All right. Graham, here's your volunteer.
I can't see anyone.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I have her pinned. Okay.
Hi, is it Peg?
Yes.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So you've been hypnotized before, I presume?
Oh, a lot.
Okay. What is it you like about being hypnotized?
I just like how I can just go in and just let things flow and happen and come out of it knowing that even if I don't remember a lot of it, I can see the change for whatever's going on, whatever my intention was.
Fantastic. Well, let's try something here. Maybe you can rest your hand on your lap, palm up, as if you're about to receive a present.
Okay.
Or as if I'm about to put something on it. And have you ever been swimming?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've been in water, and have you had that experience where, I'll explain why I'm asking this. When I was a child, I was very much into Bruce Lee films, and I found it fascinating that I'd go to a swimming pool, and if you kick and punch in the water, it's so much slower, isn't it? There's like this force against you. I'd like you to imagine, and you can put your hand on your lap if it's more comfortable. I'd like you to imagine that force of water on your hand. It's not uncomfortable, but it's difficult to push against. In fact, you can even go ahead and imagine there's a bowling ball on your hand, and it's just too heavy to lift. It's not uncomfortable, but it's just too heavy to lift. And when you've got a feel for that there's water pushing against your hand, that there's a bowling ball holding it down, that's just too heavy to lift. When you have a feel that you won't be able to lift your hand, go ahead and try to lift it and see what that's like. Okay, and now what I'd like to do is take your other hand and mold that bowling ball down, and using both hands, squeeze it down until the bowling ball is about the size of a marble. And when you have that marble, can you lift it up to the screen and show me? Okay, and what color is the marble?
Green.
Green. And is it solid or transparent?
It's clear. Yeah, it's transparent.
Okay. And what sort of temperature is it? Is it cool, warm?
It's warm.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is put the marble back into your other hand. And now what I want you to imagine is that every time you breathe out, that ball is getting heavier and heavier and heavier with every breath. And you might find that the heavier the ball gets, the deeper you go into that experience. And as you feel that ball getting heavier on your hand, you can sink down with it deep inside, easily and effortlessly. Finding that heaviness can be so comfortable. But actually, it's not something that's holding you down, it's something that's setting you free to allow you to experience the power of your mind to create these new realities for you in a matter of mere minutes. And when your subconscious mind and your conscious mind have learnt this lesson thoroughly, when you know that you can access this resourceful side of yourself quickly, effortlessly, comfortably, anytime, any day. And when you've learned all you can for now from this experience, you can, in your own time, slowly open your eyes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That was neat.
And what was that experience like for you, Peg?
Well, the one thing I've always found when I do hypnosis is I'm usually ahead of the hypnotherapist with my hand going down, my hand doing what it's like my subconscious knows what's going to happen. But I just love the fact that it was just, it's all you. And I love what he was saying, you've got the resources, you've got the ability. And it's like, it makes me feel so good inside going, yay.
Yes, because you already knew that before, but now you really know it, don't you?
Yes.
And you can feel it in your body.
Yes.
And we witnessed that too. So that was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
so that's an example, for me, Kelley, that's an example of an open-ended induction. So when I can't remember how it's written up on the website, but when I've written it up in books or training manuals, the induction stops when they hold up the marble, and it can go in any direction from there, because some people are genuinely seeing a marble. And then when you think about it, you've got hypnotic phenomena there in about maybe 60 seconds. Other people are just imagining the marble. Some can't quite get the sense of the marble. Others, if I'm working face to face with someone, I might get them to pass me the marble and I might comment on it and pass it back. So although that may have seemed like I was directing it, it's completely open-ended and could have gone in any number of directions. That could have just stopped there and been a little suggestibility thing, but also could become a full induction, and as it gets heavier again. Yeah, I like that one.
I really like that one. And you have no way of knowing this, but in my office on the windowsill, I have a jar of marbles. And so I could imagine using this induction and then sending them away after they've selected the marble of their choice. So I like using these little props to anchor in what they've learned. So that leads me to the next question. Do you suggest that they use these inductions later on their own as a form of self-hypnosis?
Yeah, and I put plenty of suggestions in. I think regardless of what induction I'm doing, that I'll re-emphasize at some point that they're the one doing this, even if it's one where I'm leading more. I'm making it clear that they are, like I did there, that they're learning how to access this part of them, and it wasn't me doing it to them. They always had this ability, and so they can either go away and repeat the exact same process, or they can I have them sometimes almost imagine they're filming the induction while it's happening, and then they can just go back home and close their eyes and rerun the movie and live it again. Because some people, I think, with self-hypnosis, there's one thing, there's the courage to, or the belief that you can be hypnotized. But for some people, self-hypnosis is another step beyond that. So they have to believe that they can hypnotize themselves. So I find it helpful to almost give them that session as a gift, and they can go home, and if they need to, they can imagine I'm there with them, or they can just realize that they've ingested this and they are the hypnotist.
Yes, and that's a frame that I use whenever I'm teaching anything that can be used as self-hypnosis. I will say that even if it's an anchor collapse, which I present everything under the umbrella of hypnosis, all the NLP that I do, or mindfulness techniques, and once they show that they're efficient at it, I'll say, now you can use this to become your own hypnotist. Isn't that fantastic? And most people are excited about it. And I found, and perhaps you noticed this too, one of the challenges is to make the case for people to use these things outside of our sessions, because especially if they've arrived with chronic issues, they've been conditioned in through repetition, and repetition is one of the ways that they'll be able to move towards those solutions, those goals that they want. And so is there any particular hack that you have to motivate your clients to use what you're teaching them?
Oh, I simply tell them all the time that the real magic happens between the sessions. And I say to them that I'm more like a physiotherapist than a surgeon. So it's not like the models of hypnosis they might see in the movies where they go under, I remove the tumor or whatever and put them back together and they're sorted. I'm teaching them through the induction and through the session things for them to go away and do. So the whole focus, I think from the beginning of my sessions to the end of them, the whole focus is on them getting out there and doing it. So in a way, it doesn't need to become something that I make explicit, because that's clear throughout the whole session that we're doing this, and I'm trying to get you out the door as quickly as possible because I'm really excited to hear next week about the changes that will have taken place.
Yes.
And they go out there equally excited.
Yeah, I like that. And I like those suggestions that you're offering, that when they return, you'll be excited to hear about those changes. And sometimes if I'm working with weight loss clients, as they leave my office, I'll say, hey, I'll see less of you next time. And then they go laughing out the door. That's always great. I want to share, I'm going to pin myself here, and I want to share here I am. Something that I use, every self-respecting hypnotist should have at least one of these. Do you have at least one of these? I was asking Graham.
I do, yeah, but I use it as a pendulum as well.
Yes, exactly. And you'll notice this one's from London. Yay. So when I bring this out, every single client starts laughing. Now, some clients, especially the young people that I work with, are looking around for it, waiting for it, anticipating it. And when I bring it out, one of the things that I say is that, well, after they've finished laughing, say, I could certainly hypnotize you with this pocket watch. We can do that, because you'd probably really enjoy that. But one of the main reasons that I want to show this to you is to show you how powerful your mind is. And I will show them that I'm just having it held here in the air and my arms suspended in the air. So it's moving a little bit. But what's really interesting is that even before I finish the sentence, it starts to move in a certain direction, going from side to side. And then even before I finish commenting on the change, it's made a very quick change. And by this time, the client is quite intrigued. They're really trying to watch my hand to see if I'm doing this consciously. But I'll just keep my patter up and talk about sometimes we get stuck in patterns that keep us feeling like we're just going around in circles and not making progress in our life. And we just wonder, how could we ever stop that particular pattern and create a new one that would be more helpful for us? By this time, the client is in a trance. They've been watching this, and I can go anywhere with my pattern. I might go into the traditional lateral movement. And of course, for anyone who does any bilateral stimulation work, you know what's happening. If their eyes are following this back and forth, that's what those old-timey hypnotists were doing with their pendulums, getting that balance in the brain activity so that any nervousness or anxiety starts to calm, starts to quiet, even while a part of their mind becomes more curious about what's going to happen. And you know, one of the best things about using a pocket watch is, of course, you're going to meet expectations of some clients. You're getting some hypnotic phenomena there, and you can choose whether you're going to explain the science of how this works, or if you're going to keep it more mysterious and magical. If I'm working in person with a client, I'll hand it to them so that they can have that experience and see how powerful their thoughts are. Because often I work with a lot of people who have chronic issues, and it may be obesity, it may be chronic pain, or some other health issue, anxiety. And what they have done is they have disconnected from those messages from their body, just so that they can function. And we really want them to get that dialogue between mind and body going. And this is a great demonstration, much as if you would run the lemon condenser for someone to show how their body is always responding to whatever they're thinking about, whatever their experience is, whether they're aware of it or not. And so that's one of the ways that I use my pocket watch, and perhaps it might give you guys some ideas too, so that you can have fun with it. And I do want to have fun when I'm working with people. I think that we can enjoy it so much more, and people learn better when they're enjoying themselves. So, do you have certain therapeutic inductions that you would use for specific clients? Like, let's say you have someone who has chronic pain. Do you have one that you prefer to use, or do you just leave it up to the individual?
Generally, I'm trying to read the room, I guess. So depending on how the initial talk has been going, and depending on their goal, the induction I don't feel like I ever consciously make the decision about which induction to use. It just kind of develops organically from the discussion. But I tend to categorize inductions now according to what they teach. So that one I did a moment ago of Peg, I call the heavy ball induction. And when I've got a list of all my inductions in a training manual, next to heavy ball, it will say you can access the resourceful part of yourself anytime quickly. And then another induction might be, this induction teaches you that you can notice state change and things like that. So I'm categorizing inductions according to the lessons they teach. And so if I was working with someone with pain, I guess one of the things I need to learn is where they put their focus. So I might use an eye fixation for that.
Graham has frozen a little bit, right?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Graham.
Hi, Tracy.
No problem for me. I can see you clearly, continuously.
Yeah, I think I can see everyone
I'm fine
apart
too.
from Kelley.
Yeah. Oh no.
It's possible that Kelley is frozen.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it looks like she stepped out for a moment because I think she froze. But It's still recording, so if you want to continue to talk to us, we're listening.
Okay. Yeah, so Kelley was asking about, say I'm working with someone who's got pain. I would be thinking about what lesson it's useful for them to learn. And working with pain clients, the lessons can be where they put their focus. It can be they can learn that they can create sensations of numbness and things like that. So the induction I use, we're based not so much on the issue the client has as much as what they need to learn to get to where they want to be. I don't know if I explained that well enough, but yeah, so I'm not focusing so much on they've got pain, so I'll do this induction. I'm focusing on that particular client. Pain may be stopping them enjoying life with their children. So the induction will be about focusing on positives and focusing on anything else apart from the pain, which obviously in itself is going to be a useful technique when you're dealing with pain. Hi, Kelley.
Wonderful, wonderful, great. So how about another demonstration? I think everybody really enjoys hearing you. Your voice is so fabulous, by the way. And of course your face is marvelous too. But to have even more of these experiences, we're open and ready. What would you like to demonstrate now?
Well, this would be an induction that I would use if I wanted someone to start noticing their state and noticing state changes. It would be a variation of a My Friend John induction. It's useful if I could demonstrate it on one person, I think, rather than the whole group.
Okay, let another volunteer just speak up, and I'll be able to co-pin like I did before. Who wants to play with Graham?
I'll do it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. All right, let's see. Let me find you.
Are we ready to go?
Yes,
Yeah.
anytime. Go ahead.
Okay. Is it Shireen? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. What I'd like you to do, if you're somewhere where you sat comfortably, is I'd like you to imagine in front of you a full-length mirror.
Okay.
And I want you to look at your reflection in that mirror. And in particular, I want you to look into your eyes. And as you look at the eyes of your reflection, if you look closely enough, you might see your own reflection looking back at you. And just focus on that you there now in that mirror. And notice as you breathe in and breathe out. Notice how your body perhaps relaxes with each breath out. And notice how easily you can simply slip inside and go down into that place of comfort where you can relax and feel the freedom to just be. No pressure to perform perfectly. No expectation. Just you time. You time multiplied. As you notice that you. Perhaps that you that sometimes doesn't get the attention she deserves. And you can just notice the things that she and you are learning from this experience. About how easily you can change where you are. And how you can notice how you do that in ways that perhaps you didn't even realize. As you simply take time to pause and look deep inside yourself. and learn from that experience all that you can, all that you choose to right now. And when you're ready, when you feel as though you've learned all you need to learn for now, and when you feel as though you're ready and excited about the future changes you can make, having learned how quickly you can change your state, you can do so once again by slowly, in your own time, opening your eyes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How was that experience for you, Shireen?
I'm a hypnosis junkie, have been for like 3-4 decades. I just love it. And Graham's voice is so wonderful. I just felt myself both that heavy sinking feeling and the light floating feeling, and just looking in my eyes. It was great.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for participating.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's true, Graham, your voice is is entrancing. And what a gift to have. You're in the right business.
I don't know if I told you before, Kelley, that when I was a Baptist pastor, I think I've mentioned this before, someone said to me that I have the kind of voice they could fall asleep to. So the clues were there years ago. That's not what you want to hear as a preacher, but as a hypnotist, that's quite useful.
Yeah, I think so. That's fantastic. So I know you're a big fan of Erickson, as I am also. And I love a lot of the work that he did with Ernest Rossi. And so that brings to mind ideomotor finger signaling. Do you have any inductions that involve that kind of communication?
I
Or
do.
response?
They're probably very difficult to demonstrate online, I think. But I do one called, I call it the old finger lift. And I mean, we could demonstrate that, but I guess we won't get the full effect because we can't see what's going on with the fingers.
Yeah, well, why don't you just do it in a group thing, and people can have their own experience and just learn from the way that you're presenting it. Because I think one of the most valuable things about talks like this is that we pick up on maybe new patter and new tonality and new phrases. So anything that you're sharing here is welcome.
Okay, great. So what I'd like you to do then is to place your hands down either on your lap or on the table in front of you, however you do that. And we're going to begin counting each finger, and I'll count down from 10 to 1. And we're going to do this a couple of rounds, and your subconscious can take from each round a different lesson if it chooses to, or can simply learn at a greater depth with each round. But what we'll do, if your hands are placed there, I'm going to count down from 10 to 1. And what I want you to do is to look at each finger that I name. So whether you move from the left to the right or the right to the left is not important right now. But as I say, 10, you'll look at one finger, 9, you'll look at the next finger. And then when we get to 1, I'll invite you to close your eyes. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
So you look at each number that I name, 10, 9, looking at the next finger, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now you can go ahead and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, what I want you to do now with each number that I mention, I'll invite you to lift the corresponding finger. And as you lift the finger, you can breathe in. And as the finger lowers, you can breathe out. 10, 9, Inhaling as you lift the finger, exhaling as it lowers. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can go ahead and open your eyes. And we're going to do that one more time. Each number that I say, you can lift that finger and breathe in, and then lower it and breathe out. And try to keep your eyes open until the end if you can. And I'd like you to imagine that with each number, the finger gets heavier than the finger before it. So I'll name the finger, and you breathe in. And as you lower it, you breathe out. 10, 9, 8, each finger heavier than the one before. 7, 6, and if you find a finger is too heavy to lift, that's fine. You can just move on to the next one. 5, trying to keep those eyes open. 4, 3, 2, 1. And now you can let your eyes comfortably close. And for this final round, I want you to imagine that you're looking at each finger that I name. 10, 9, going deeper into 8, 7, this experience that you're having of 6, 5, 4, deep focus, becoming fully absorbed. 3, 2, and going all the way inside. 1. And letting go and giving yourself permission to go deep inside that place of resourcefulness, that place where you learn lessons and recall lessons and rediscover old lessons. A friend of mine has recently rediscovered horse riding, which was something they did as a teenager, and they stopped when they had children. And they've just discovered it again, just found out they had more spare time than they thought they did. And they've started horse riding again, and they've rediscovered that childlike part of themselves. And I wonder what lessons or hobbies, interests or gifts you can rediscover. Perhaps even having forgotten that you had this strength, this ability, this route to joy. And I'm just finding it beginning to reappear for you now. Perhaps a niggling thought in the back of your mind. I could do that. I remember that. I will do this once again. And as you enjoy this experience and find comfort in resting deep inside, you can remind yourself to remember not to neglect that part of you, but instead to enjoy that. And in a sense, to bring that inside, outside, living those lessons you're rediscovering. now I'll have you just imagine looking at your fingers again. As we go backwards across the fingers. Starting at 1, 2, 3, becoming more alert. 4, 5, 6. Beginning to reorient, to rediscover your body in that chair. 7, 8, preparing to return. 9 and 10, you can open your eyes.
That was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. What I like about that one is if we were working face to face, I could see more what was going on with people's fingers. And it's very common that people either on one of the rounds, they almost forget to put a finger down. This finger just stays there sticking up in the air, or their fingers get too heavy to lift. And I like it when the finger stays in the air, because afterwards we can return to that finger and we'll talk as if it seems like that finger had something it wanted to say. It was kind of putting its hand up to get attention. And then we'll use idiomotor signals with that finger.
Yeah, Marcia said, wonderful, that felt so good. It was difficult to keep my eyes open at the beginning. And of course, that's because you gave some wonderful suggestions to try to do that. And I found that on the way back up, my fingers were involuntarily twitching with your timing too. So that was a true ideomotor response. And that was fascinating to me. So
yeah,
very cool.
That's like a great example, again, I think, of trying to keep it open-ended. So depending on how you were responding, I might change what I was doing. And I like that induction because it gives the hypnotist so much potential, because you've got these 4 rounds, and either those rounds can be used to deepen the experience, like the fractionation, or you can use each round to teach something different. So you might have one round when catalepsy is a possibility, another round you might focus on focus, you might focus on visualization. Each round can potentially be a different lesson in itself. So yeah, I like that one.
I really like that. And I imagine kind of incorporating it with one that I call a handuction, that has that intense focus on the hand, starting with one hand and then moving to the other. But what I really draw people's attention to is not just how the hand looks or feels, bringing in those modalities, but how the hand serves them. And they can spend some time in gratitude for the hand. And then if there is something in their life that their hands have been complicit in, say eating or smoking or drinking or picking or pulling, and all those habits that people come to us for change, then we can address that, and we can actually do some body parts within this induction and speak to the hand and tell it what you really want, maybe to take on some new function, such as, riding a bicycle, rowing a boat, hugging somebody, writing, all these things that are going to be some of those solutions that we want to direct the subconscious mind to. So I really love this as a lead-in for that kind of work too. Thank you, Graham.
What you've described there for me with your hand induction is a great example of when you're using inductions therapeutically, there's no real divide between the induction and the change work. It flows seamlessly. So the whole kind of question of what you do once they're under, it kind of becomes meaningless, because, well, they were possibly under when we began. And sometimes I feel like sometimes in a session, I don't do the induction and then do the therapy. All I do is the induction, because when it's like you just described it there, it just flows seamlessly. And
Yes.
I really enjoy now working on Zoom, and I was quite resistant to it a few years back, because I'm working with clients in their homes. I'm working with clients in the context that the problem appears in. So it can be too easy when they come to my clinic for this to feel like a special space where anything's possible. Then they return home to the problem, and kind of their mind makes that switch. But when we're working in Zoom, very often we're working in the context where the problem appears. Yeah, so I find that quite exciting, and that means that from the very beginning, there's more possibilities, and we're right there now addressing the issue, because this is where the issue takes place.
They're right in the soup, so to say. And so, you know, for those of us who work with young people, often a parent is also in the room. And I usually advise parents that there is such a thing as secondary hypnosis, and I invite them to follow along. Do you have any particular inductions that you would use in a case like that, where you know that the parent is going to be benefiting from this experience too?
Yeah, I would use or the what I call the mirror induction. I would use that in a situation like that, because I'm having the client focus on themselves and notice their own changes, and then the parent is noticing the changes that I'm calling out, and I might start to drop suggestions about and as you notice that change to the breathing. And of course, that's quite ambiguous, because am I talking to the client or am I talking to the parent who's noticing the changes in the client? Yeah, I like being sneaky with that one. And I think I first saw Stephen Brooks demonstrate it with a pure My Friend John induction. And he would say to the other person, have you noticed the change that's happening in them? And then he might almost switch who he was hypnotizing. So the client then has a brief moment of fractionation, because they come out to look at their mum being hypnotized. And he plays around with it really well, and I like that.
Yes, I love that. And I think that drawing their attention to what has changed is so important. And, you know, when we're working online, one of the ways that we can do that, and I'll switch the pin here. One of the ways we can do that is, before we're in this position, you're viewing me now, and then we're having our experience, during which I reverse that mirror effect. And it can be very uncanny for a person to open their eyes and something has changed, but they're not quite sure what that is. And it's me just playing with the technology here. Now, in my office setting, I have on the sofa a white polar bear, and it sits on one end prior to that eye closure. And then somewhere along the way, that polar bear moves to the other end of the sofa. And I shouldn't really prank my clients, but not very many of them really notice it consciously. Every now and then, and it's funny because it's the kids that usually notice that change, but you know that they've noticed subconsciously that something is different. And it's quite fine if it's that polar bear moving. So I'm always looking for these ways to ratify to a client what has changed within them, whether it's something that they're aware of consciously, or maybe they just have that sense of it.
I like that. I quite often will say to clients, I can't think who I stole this phrase from, but I might warn clients at the beginning. I'll say, some previous clients of mine have said that I can be playfully provocative, because I like to play devil's advocate. So if you feel like I'm being a bit of a jerk, just presume it's part of the therapy and we'll get on fine. And they laugh at that. But it also means they're looking out for those times when I'm being playfully provocative. And sometimes I might not be at all, but they'll get to the end and they'll comment on something, and I'll think, well, I wasn't, but okay. It sparks this curiosity in them, that because I say this is going to be playful, they almost, without knowing how, get themselves into a playful mood because they're looking out for it, and they see it even when it's not intended.
Right. I love it when that happens too. So one other question that I have as we start to wrap this up, Graham, is, do you often repeat these inductions with the same client, or do you use different ones every time?
A bit of both. I might repeat them, but change it. Like with the finger lift one, I might change what's happening each round. And that it can be useful because there's a kind of revivification, and part of them goes, oh, I know what happens here. So they go more quickly, or they kind of get themselves into a place to begin making changes more quickly. They kind of go ahead of me. And then I can actually do something different with each round. But so then you have the benefit because they already take the steps they took last time. So I haven't even got to cover that because they presume I'm going there. But then I do something different with each round of fingers, and there's like a double learning that takes place. I also do something called the pattern interrupt. So, you know, the example of like Bandler's handshake, when the hand will come up because you interrupt the handshake. I kind of would do an induction again with them, but change the ending. So that in itself becomes a bit of a pattern interrupt. And also, like I said, they go there anyway because they kind of know what's going to happen, or they think they do. And then when we interrupt that pattern, either we're letting them learn 2 lessons, or they're just in a complete place of openness because they realize actually there's even more possibilities than they thought there were. For me, it's all about possibility and having the client believe things could be different. So yeah, it was, I like to, even if I'm using the same induction, I like to make it different, just so that it reinforces that element and that, you know, change is possible.
So there's a question in the room here. Let's see. Nicola asks, she was a little bit late coming in, and you may already have addressed this. May I ask if a resistance to the fingers lifting intended as a convincer hypnotic phenomenon? I'm not quite sure if I understand that question. She's asking about is there resistance if the fingers are not moving in your old man induction?
No, not at all. I think if you, I'm not sure of the wording I used, to be honest, but generally it's quite ambiguous. So I'm not saying your finger will be unliftable or your finger will stay up in the air. I'm saying it might happen. And I think that does 2 things. One, it does 3 things. It gives a client a sense of freedom. I'm not telling them that this phenomenon is going to happen just because I want it. 2, it takes the pressure off, so they're not thinking about doing it wrongly or not getting it right. But also it adds an element of curiosity, because I'm saying, well, the fingers might lift, and that makes the client then almost becomes an observer of what's taking place. So rather than thinking, he said that finger's going to move, but it's not, or I'm not going to let him, you know, stick my finger to a table. If I say, and the finger might lift or it might freeze, they're more looking at it as a spectator and wondering what's going to happen. And then what I like about it is, even if the finger doesn't physically stay down or doesn't physically stay up, because half this time they're doing it with their eyes closed, they can imagine it does, or that they might think their finger was sticking up in the air, but actually it wasn't at all. It was all in their imagination.
How many times has that happened? And it's amazing when people are so sure, because the truth is that there are so many beliefs we hold to be true that aren't true about ourselves or about our experiences. I remember one client who right at the end, as I was bringing her to alert awakeness, she opened her eyes and she stared at me and she said, "Did you tap my hand?" And I said, "No, I did not. I don't touch clients without, you know, their approval and notice ahead of time." And she said, "I swear you tapped my hand 3 times. She was so convinced. And that was the thing that really told her that something very different had happened in that session. And it was right at the end. So we can't know. We just don't know what the possibilities are. But I love the way you think, just being open to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. So you're currently working on another book?
Yes, I'm working on a book on online hypnosis, because I've spoken to a number of hypnotists throughout the whole pandemic who felt quite de-skilled by working online, and they were like, "But how would this work, and how would that work, and how would I do this induction?" And most of the time, the answer is it's exactly the same. You know, you make minimal changes here and there, but I think it's just it's a mindset shift more than anything. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm working on that.
Yeah, I look forward to reading that. And, I've been working online for years, way before the pandemic. And I found that people are so entrained to the screen that old Hollywood phrase, suspending disbelief, happens automatically. In fact, about a year into the pandemic, I was working with a lot of kids who were having trouble learning online. They were really having a difficult time transitioning to Zoom classes, and they weren't able to focus or to retain information. And it occurred to me that a lot of these kids were big time video game players. And what do we know about playing video games? It's such a wonderful trance where they can check out of reality and just be engaged in their imagination and the automatic coordinations of their eyes and hands. And I suspect that that's what they were doing with their Zoom schooling then. They were going into a rather dissociated state. So it was interfering with some of their learning. But certainly everybody is so much more adept, and so many people that weren't really using technology are now using it. So
Yeah.
to be able to work online is phenomenal. I'll look forward to
And
it.
I think there's quite a difference now, because in the early days when people started to work online, one question was around, how does the hypnotist keep their authority, if that's, the model of hypnosis that you have? Because it was like, well, I'm in my home now, I'm not in his clinic, so I'm in charge. How does the hypnotist stay the one leading the show? But people are now so much more used to having lessons online, having staff meetings online, talking to their GP online, that I think that there's no distinction anymore, I think, in people's heads between almost being face to face or being online. So it's for those hypnotists who are nervous about it or concerned about it or wondered how it would seem to their clients, it's like, well, it will seem completely normal, because that's how you do life now. You shop online, you speak to your friends online, you have business meetings online. There's hypnotists who are not working in that way, I think, are missing out massively, because there are a few changes you need to make, but there's great benefits as well.
Well, I certainly appreciate, and I know everyone here attending appreciates all of the things that you shared here today. And I'm really excited to polish up my marbles and count my fingers. Those were a couple of my very favorite things that I learned from you today. And you're just so gracious and such a lovely person, and you know your stuff. So I really respect you, Graham. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Tracy asked, would you consider teaching a class online on how to work with those 3 questions? That's a great idea, Tracy, because I really wanted to have a little more expansion on that too.
Yeah, I've got a live training coming up on July 2nd on this whole topic of therapeutic inductions. And then after that, I'm planning to do an online course at howtodoinductions.com on therapeutic inductions, and it'll unpack those questions quite a bit, because for me, they're about far more than just the induction, if we put it in that terms. It's almost the beginning of a different model of therapy. So it's me kind of sneaking solution-focused work into hypnosis. So yeah, it's after July, when I do the live training, we'll begin looking at putting an online course on that very topic. Okay, great. So for people to find out about that, can they sign up at your website to be on a newsletter or something like that? Yeah, if they go to howtodoinductions.com, they can sign up for the newsletter. They can become a subscriber and see all the stuff that's on there. What we will do, the course will be free to those who are subscribers, rather than like you buy the course itself. But if you sign up for the newsletter, that'll announce when it's coming out. Okay, that's fantastic. What a wonderful offer. And so howtodoinductions.com is Graham's website, and it's filled with fantastic information. So go and absorb all of his brilliance. Thank you so much. And there's lots of thank yous here coming in the chat room, and people really appreciated your
your sharing with us today, Graham. It was so good to see you. And
It was a
everybody
pleasure.
out there, yeah, thank you for joining me. And I will be sending the replay out once it's rendered. Let me see if there's any other questions here. I think lots of gratitude, and that's marvelous. And I'm grateful for all of you. Have a fantastic Friday and weekend and upcoming weeks and months and years. We're so lucky to be in this business. Right. And thank you, Graham. I really appreciate you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you very much, Kelley.